oh, don't lefties want more cop training? I'm like, yeah, they want good cop training. They want competent officers that don't actually like, oh my God, the guy's got a gun.
Let's talk about the Georgia cop city or whatever, because
Yeah.
you were very like you were very frustrated with ABBA, at least. I don't know about Destiny, where you're like,
No,
this is a
bro,
bad look. Stop
it
pissing off all the
is.
fucking black progressives. What are you
No,
doing? Blah blah blah. And like,
it's just
I
optically
wanted to
terrible.
I wanted to shit talk you on Twitter, but I was like, this is gonna become a whole thing. I'd rather do it over voice chat anyways. So walk me through what you were thinking.
Yeah, all right. So with ABBA specifically with this, the troll that he did happened right after people were insinuating that he is a race traitor. I can't say the word because I'm not black. So what he said, they called him what they called him, right? It's an animal, and a sea animal.
I'm tracking. Well, an R animal, but the shortened version is
yeah. So what happened is that all that happened, and yeah, I'd be pissed too. Okay, so I understand the petty. I really do. Good on you. You've played petty very well. But optically, all it did was confirm all their biases against him. All of it, even if it wasn't true. And it ultimately ended up not being true, or at least he claimed it wasn't true.
Yeah. See, I'm straight up wondering, because like that letter looked like mad official or whatever. And I'm not like, I don't care enough to like go back and like read it and like, check out whether or not it's photoshopped or there any edits or anything like that. But like, okay, so hold on, let me walk you through it from my perspective.
We got to preface it a little bit. Go on.
Yeah, so I think it's fucking hilarious. So basically,
I mean, it is funny, legitimately. I agree that it's funny. Optically, it's stupid.
You don't have. Well, we'll get into that. So if I remember correctly, what happened was Destiny was watching some FT Signifier content that was like critical or whatever, and he was talking shit about FT Signifier. And some people were like, "Oh, you should debate him. You should debate him. You should debate him." And I think Destiny was like, "Hey, put this out to him. I definitely would debate him, et cetera, et cetera."
Sure.
FT Signifier, if I remember correctly, he's like, "Oh, you're like a petty bitch and an asshole, and there's no way that I'll debate you because you're clout hungry and you just need personalities to bash online. So the only way that I'll do it is if you..."
Kind of true, right? I mean, not to give Destiny shit, he lives off of this. Is how he makes his money. It's partly true a little bit.
Sometimes he can be a little bit petty and a little spiteful and a little drama driven. And sometimes he needs personalities onto his show in order to beat up on them, in order to make content. I think these are all descriptively true.
And for any Destiny fan out there, I'm not talking shit about Destiny. Like,
it's great content.
I don't dislike the guy. I've met him in real life a couple of times. Like, fuck off if you're trying to say that shit. Go on.
No. So he has his redeeming qualities, but so basically, like, Destiny tentatively, I think he tentatively agrees to it. Yeah. Where I don't know if he like agreed on a dollar amount, or if he agreed like in spirit that he would do a donation or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know that particular detail, but they did agree from my understanding.
Yeah, so I feel like he tentatively agreed just so he could have the debate. And then what happened was he was gone for a couple of days, so he wasn't like able to respond. And FD Signifier was talking shit on Twitter, where he's like, "You're not gonna do it. You're a pussy. Where's the money? Where's the receipts, et cetera, et cetera." And so Destiny, I think out of a sense of spite, but also it's kind of fucking funny, is he's like, "Hey, bro, I'm busy. I didn't have time to check Twitter every single day. I didn't have time to check Discord every single day. You couldn't even wait a couple of days for me to do the dono. So you know what? Fuck you. I'm donating to fucking Atlanta Police Union." And it was like 10K or 15K. Yes. It's like, holy shit, I wish I had 10K just to fucking piss somebody off in the morning. Like, what the fuck?
Here's the thing, though. That's how he framed it in the tweet, right? He didn't actually donate to the police union. That's the other thing that makes this optically bad, because he's really like digging the knife in. But what the email actually says, they're like, "Thanks for your donation to Crime Stoppers," which is not the union, which is not the Atlanta Police Foundation. They're part of it. They're part of that national organization that helps fund Crime Stoppers. But it was specifically in that email to Crime Stoppers, and Crime Stoppers isn't that bad of a program. It's like designed to help like have anonymous tip lines and stuff like that. So I'm like, bro, like I get it. You're like dug that knife in. No one read that email. And that is just further like validating their opinions about you. Like you're going to have them about you anyways, Destiny, right?
That you're just shit posting out of fucking spite.
Yeah, they're going to have those opinions about you anyways. But like, there's no need to frame it that way when the email is right there and it specifically says cops, Crime Stoppers or whatever. So that was Destiny's donation. That's why I said Destiny's donation in the grand scheme of things isn't as bad, even optically, even though he said he donated to the Atlanta Police Union or whatever fucking the tweet said. Well, not as bad as what Abba did.
well, now I feel like I need to go check the fucking the email or whatever just to make sure that what you said was true.
Yeah, I'll try to find
Christian it. Blair said that's what led Destiny to giving the 10K. Yeah, he was literally like he did it just to piss off FD Signifier because Cop City also catching everybody up on this. I want to say if I remember, I could be totally off on the numbers. It's like, is it 3,000 acres? Is it 300 acres? I forget. It's some.
I think acreage. I think it's double digits. Maybe it's 30.
Yeah. City. I think 30 is being developed. But there the 381 acres, and then I want to say like 30 to 40 is going to be developed. So they're going to take 85 acres of the 300 acres and build the training center.
Yeah.
So all right. So anyway, so for me, I don't give two fucks about Cop City. Oh, let's catch everybody up on the drama though. So what happened is, I think this is by like a community of color or working class people or whatever. So Connor's just another cop in Cop City. So true, King.
Are you talking about who is doing the protesting?
Well, allegedly is right. So, but it's also like a bunch of leftists and all that kind of stuff who are like, hey, you're basically building a training center for more cops to be trained to brutalize working class people and people of color. So instead of, devastating this forested acreage in order to, create a monument to American fascism, why don't you invest this money in, basically what defund the police people would want, like invested in community programs, invested in like field social workers, invested in this, invested in that.
Yeah.
Don't buy this thing. But for me, it's like, the reason why I don't give a fuck about this is because like I went to the Orange County, Orlando, Cop City, and they do awesome fucking work. So, basically like the ranges are good, the martial arts is good, the fitness program is good, all that kind of stuff. And there are so many like shitty, particularly in Florida, there are so many shitty degree mills where they just make you do like the minimum requirement, like, hey, go do 10 push-ups, run a mile and a half in the next 20 minutes,
sure.
And then, throw a slapping fist at this guy and I'll give you a certificate saying that you can be a cop. There's so many of those degree mills in Florida that it was actually refreshing to have like a high quality training center. So anyways, but what do you think about Cop City? Based or cringe?
So to bring up to speed what the lefties are actually complaining about is that the Cop City thing is there's two groups of lefties that are protesting against this, and there's overlap between the two. The first is the fact that environmentalists don't want it to be developed in this particular forest, at least at this amount of acreage, because they call this particular forest the lungs of Atlanta. It's one of the largest natural forests in America, and it is the largest one. It's specifically in Atlanta, covering about 300 acres, like I said. So they don't want that to be touched at all. They basically want it to be a national park or state park so that it can be continued to be a natural preserve for nature. So that's one part. The other one is that the not the anti-cop people, but we can call them anti-cop people, don't want that particular training facility to be built specifically because it has the ability to be used to train in urban warfare. Those are their words, not mine. And they bring that up because of the fact that they have a simulated city that police will use specifically to train on how to conduct raids. There's a couple of stores, there's like a gas station, and a couple mock model homes in like different configurations in order to practice raiding people. They don't think the police, generalized police, should be conducting raids. They don't want the police to be in that kind of militarized kind of mode. They want them to do other things, and there isn't any guarantee that the kind of training they do want will actually be conducted. Continuum use of force training, de-escalation training, training in order to how to understand to deal with mental ill people, etc., etc., etc. They don't think that the kind of training they want is going to actually be done. And a lot of people in Destiny's Twitter, I'll say, because I don't know if they're DDG or whatever, we're trying to be like, oh, don't lefties want more cop training? I'm like, yeah, they want good cop training. They want competent officers that don't actually like, oh my god, the guy's got a gun, like Bosch would fucking do, and just blast people or go through and do raids and that sort of thing. And that's not guaranteed here.
So it's really clear. So I have to prove my like chud credentials before I go on my progressive credentials.
It's fair. So you got to keep your audience.
Yeah. So although they're like build 2 cop cities. Yeah. So basically, like I really do admire Teddy Roosevelt, because basically, if you look at like the federal national park system, what he said, which I think is fundamentally correct, is like there is like a wealth of natural beauty inside the United States, and we basically butchered and colonized and ripped apart and industrialized the entire East Coast, and I don't want the entire country to be just a giant fucking parking lot. So fuck that. Let's do Yellowstone, let's do this, let's do that. And so he, if I remember correct, I think he was like instrumental in creating like the National Park Service and preserving land and all that kind of shit. So I think that's great, and I think it's something that we should continue as a country. And if they're maintaining 200 acres in order to develop 85, and then they keep the 200 acres open to the public, like I could see a compromise there. But either way, that's for Atlanta to decide. I don't care about cops getting training on how to clear rooms or how to engage in like urban warfare, or to engage. Warfare is probably a bad word, right?
Yeah, that's why I said it's how they say it.
Urban conflict, and then also to like maybe like recreate like riots and do like counter riot tactics and all that kind of stuff. I have no problems with cops training that way, and you do need space and you do need high quality training in order to do that stuff. So if this fits the bill, I don't care. The truth is, though, exactly. Optimal baby flashbang angles. True, Niz. Exactly. That's what I was going to get into. So I saw a story today on Twitter, and I was like, this seems like the perfect story that a lefty would make up. And it was an 11-year-old black boy who called the cops on his stepdad or biological dad or something like that. His stepdad or biological dad came to the house and was like yelling and screaming and smashing things and yelling at the mom and maybe beating her up or whatever. And so he calls the cops, and then the cops show up, and the kid comes out from the bedroom, and the cop fucking shoots the kid.
Yep.
And like the kid lives. He's okay. But apparently the kid was like, what the fuck? I called you. What did I do? Why'd you shoot me? And it's like, I can't think of a better indication of like police incompetence than showing up to a domestic violence situation and shooting a fucking 10-year-old because you're jumpy. Like, I really can't think of a better situation. So I do want cops to be, I'll wrap it up, but I do want cops to be Johnny Rambo, capable of handling violence and kicking ass and taking names. But I also want them to be like emotionally intelligent and competent and cool under pressure and willing to negotiate and viewing members of the community as human beings who are deserving of protection, not just filling with lead. So that's a difficult balance to strike.
Yeah, no, and I think that's completely fair. That's why I'm not necessarily against it, but I completely understand where lefties are coming from. I'm a little bit of a lefty myself, obviously, but at the same time, it's just like, yeah, you gotta, if you're going to want to not placate, that's a bad word. If you're going to want to actually understand where these people are coming from, you have to understand their arguments, and nobody was actually doing good faith on that like
Well,
whatsoever.
I think it was a little bit easier to watch them like, throw Molotov cocktails at construction equipment and then one of them to get fucking yeeted by a cop and just be like, fuck it. Like leftists are fucking with cops, cops are shooting lefties, who cares?
Oh yeah, that
So
whole thing is and they're not releasing the evidence about that killing, and then there's like conflicting evidence, conflicting coroner reports whether or not the guy had a gun on him. They claim they found a gun, but it wasn't like near him or something. Like there's all sorts of mess on that, so that's a whole other conversation that needs to go through the damn court system to figure out. So yeah, I think
well,
suing the
so
city is going to be a bit expensive on that one, because
so
57
cop
shots, bit
57.
much. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they basically
Well,
filled the tent full of lead.
Jesus. Well,
Yeah,
so for me, you have 4 or 5 cops on a scene, and then you got to figure like each magazine, if you're dealing with like a Glock 19 or which one's the bigger one? I want to say a Glock 17 is the 9mm full size, if I remember correct. So I think you're dealing with like 17 rounds or whatever many rounds a
yeah,
fucking full size Glock carries. I carried a Glock 21, which was 13 rounds. But let's say you have 4 or 5 cops. Each one of them does a fucking mag dump,
yep,
and 5 cops times 19, you're at fucking 57.
yeah,
And actually, like, so a lot of people are like, why did they shoot 10 times? Why did they shoot 10 times or whatever? And what I would say is, in training, you do kind of like that, like plank, 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 where you're doing like the marksmanship shit.
yeah.
And then when you're doing like combat shit, you might do like a 2 round burst or a 3 round burst. But when you're like in an actual adrenaline situation, you're typically just like pointing it vaguely at the thing that you're trying to hit and yanking on the trigger as fast as you can so the bad thing doesn't hit you.
Yeah, and they're also
So
trained
that
to empty the magazine to eliminate the threat, right?
you
So,
you shoot until you stop the threat, which by the way, you can empty a magazine in a few seconds.
yep,
So typically, like by the time you search and assess and figure out whether or not there's still a threat, you've already emptied your
yeah.
magazine. So Drake 2112 asked, do cops carry 9mm? So local cops and state cops, they carry everything. So I've seen like 45 9mm. Those are going to be the most common. And then I've also even seen a 45 gap, which is a Glock automatic pistol. It was like a shortened 45 round that I think they overpressured or something like that and developed specifically for law enforcement. So you could have like a higher capacity, higher pressure 45 caliber round. But it has like such unique things that 45 gap was donated to the Florida State Police for them to use exclusively. And the cop said, yeah, fuck it, it's free ammo, we'll take it. So yeah, cops carry all sorts of kind of crazy shit. And 9mm is not worse than 45. If you look at it, it's if you look at like the ballistics or whatever, especially with like hollow points, it's not far off from a 45. And how popular is 40? 40 S&W is popular with like boomers because they like how much of a punch it has. But to be honest, it's like it's a very like snappy round. Like it's very highly gassed. So it's not popular because it has a lot of recoil, but it is popular with boomers because they like to shoot a man's round.
Gotcha. I just pinged you in private chat on DM
Sure.
with the image of the email that Destiny received from the Atlantic Police Department. So it's actually at the bottom of the email. The last
Okay,
bit of
Crime
bullets clipped out.
Stoppers of Greater Atlanta.
Yep, specifically
Well,
in support of.
at least it was in Atlanta. But I think the other email is the one that I read though, is Atlanta Police Foundation.
Yeah, no, it's the
So
same email. That's from the Atlanta Police Foundation, which is the
two
nonprofit
Crime Stoppers of Greater Orlando.
to Crime
Yeah.
Stoppers specifically, because the Atlanta Police Foundation specifically operates that kind of nonprofit. So they're
Charter.
part of that. Yeah. Whereas the ABBA one was just to the Atlanta Police Foundation, which is also responsible for the majority of the payment to Cop City. So
Nice,
like
very
as like I think the total cost of of Cop City is like 90 million or 120 million or something. I'm gonna look up Cop City cost. 90 million, yeah. So 90 million is the cost of Cop City, and the Atlanta Police Foundation donated or supported it to like 90%. So the city of Atlanta is only putting in like 10 million of it or something like that, and the rest of it's coming from the Atlantic Police Foundation with donations from various corporations from Atlanta.
So, all right, so let's get into the ABBA optics. This is where, have you seen like the Shark Zero thing too, where he got called a
Bro,
raccoon by
yes, and
Sunny Bunny or
I
whatever the fuck?
defended. I actually went and defended him and took on a lot of those people that wanted to just be out and out racist against him. There's actually a tweet on my page you can find. It's got some likes or whatever, but yeah, I know all about that. I watch Shark Zero on a regular, so
Yeah, so basically with that, it's kind of, I have like a similar vibe where it's like you can be progressive to a point where you can be like pro-life, pro-immigration, anti-military, anti-cop, this, that, the other, you know, social democrat or a socialist or whatever. But if you defer on like trans shit in the slightest, or maybe you're not a cab, you're like an incrementalist or whatever, people just like rip you to fucking shreds. And so I could see a millionaire like ABBA basically being like, well, fuck y'all. I'm a multimillionaire. My content isn't going anywhere. I'm gonna have a fan
yeah,
base no matter what. I'm gonna give $2,000 to these people just to fucking shit post and fuck you guys.
yeah. No, I mean that's totally what he did, but do you want to do that optically? I mean, when you have there's a person in my chat who's been around for a long time. Maybe it isn't me. It says "fu money is very fun." Let me pull that on the screen so everybody can see it, because that's exactly what it was. "Fu money is very fun."
If you got fuck you money, then give it to fucking CSP or give it to me. We don't have fuck you money. Jesus. I can't donate fucking $10,000 as a fucking shitpost.
Right.
I can barely donate fucking $20 as a fucking shitpost. Get the fuck out of here.
Ain't that the truth? And that's I 100% understand. That's exactly what happened. At the same time, like, do you want to give them that sort of ammo, or do you want to get them on your side? And I would want to at least try to get them on my side. And absent that, yeah, be petty. I don't care if you're petty. Just don't do it in a way that validates everything that they say about you.
But this is the split in our opinion. So maybe I've been listening to too much Chud Logic. Maybe that's my problem. So you're a Shark Zero fan. I'm a fucking.
I watch Chud a little bit, but
yeah,
not as often.
With Chud or whatever, it's like he really, really, really dislikes this like wing of like leftist, woke scold, uber progressive fucking Twitter and YouTube and Twitch. And he has kind of gotten sick to the point of where he just views it as like endless purity testing to the point of it detriment to all else. Now, maybe we shouldn't listen to Chud in the first place because he's totally black-pilled on fucking content and social progress and all that kind of stuff in the first place. But what he basically boils down to, which maybe this plays to my bias, is he's like, fuck these people. They're basically bed bugs who aren't going to do shit anyways. All their rhetoric is counterproductive. And all they really are at the end of the day are people who are super loud on social media. So whatever you can do to fucking piss these people off, I don't give a fuck. And it's content for me. So why would, to what advantage do you gain temporarily integrating woke scolds back into your political faction before they turn around and get upset about something else 30 seconds later?
No, there's fair. That is a fair assessment. My thing though is not necessarily about necessarily getting them back into the fold. It is just to not give them ammunition that is actually accurate. Does that make sense?
I don't think you become a raccoon just because you support the police.
No. Like him. Yeah, you don't become that just because of whatever, right? I'm not going to say that you are.
I'm using the full word, so hopefully it loses a little bit of its sting, you know.
Yeah,
and for the people who don't understand why that's an insult or whatever, we have a few people from out of country. It's because they're black, but then they have the white circles and all that kind of stuff on their eyes. So it's basically insinuating that they're not fully black; they're actually more white than they are black.
It's the equivalent of a race traitor. Have you ever heard a white person UKIP say you're betraying your race? It's the same kind of thing. It's cringe. Don't do it. Yeah, don't do it. Any of these other euphemisms, don't do this shit. People are
at
people.
At least Oreo is cute and sweet.
Yeah, exactly. but
okay. So these insults, but what? Okay, so why would you try to appeal to these people, and then at the end of the day,
it's not about them.
I would say even if you were like temporarily, so let's say that Abdullah came out. Let's say it wasn't a shit post. He actually donated the money, and let's say that he actually came out and he had a passionate defense of supporting law enforcement, which is basically like, hey, we tried Black Lives Matter. We tried defunding. It ended up being unpopular. Black Lives Matter walked away with millions of dollars. They're currently going bankrupt because they spent all their shit like really haphazardly in all these like really shitty, predictable
There's
ways.
nuances there too, but for another day.
Yeah. So
Let's
just go
fuck
with
the national organization. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Then let's just say the national organization exclusively. Maybe there's some local communities that are doing good shit. But the national organization basically shit the bed. They've sullied the name.
Yes.
I don't like this shit. So what I want to do is I've talked to some local law enforcement officer people. They've talked about this training that they want to implement in order to reduce like cop homicides and actually improve societies and do community policing, which I think is the way to go in order to actually improve society. As a result, I'm actually going to support law enforcement. At that point, I think that the raccoon or Oreo accusations are still going to flow just as aggressively, even if he has like a coherent vision for what he wants law enforcement to be.
Sure. But at the same time, right? If the impetus of this is that you want to see a more aggressive police presence within their community, and that is negative, right? That's the impetus, right? That's where they're kind of coming from. You defend Destiny, you do a bunch of all this other stuff. What won't you not do, right? And then you come out and be like, well, even donate $10,000 to the cops directly or indirectly, right? I'll even donate $10,000 to the cops indirectly, and fuck you. It proves their point, even to an outside observer, because that's exactly the kind of stuff they were leading people down to believe about you. And then you went through and did it. Ergo, you gave them actual ammunition that proves their biases, and to the audience that at large also gives them credence to it, and be like, well, maybe they're actually right about you. Maybe I shouldn't listen to you as much as I do, etc., etc., etc.
Hold on. So, but do you view Destiny? So Destiny's got on some pretty unhinged and aggressive rants recently. I've deeply enjoyed them, but I think that's because they could have just as easily come out of the mouth of like a 2016 anti-SJW, which is like what I fucking love about him. But he'll always dial it back. So
Sure.
if he's like cranky or pissy and he goes off on trans people or goes off on black people or goes off on Hispanic people or whatever, that like within an hour or two
thereof,
yeah, within an hour or two, he'll be like, listen, I flew off the handle because this person pissed me off or whatever, but these are the actual policy positions that I support that are ultimately progressive. So for me, it's like a delicious treat when he fucking loses his shit and says like 2016 anti-SJW shit. It's not actually like a moral indictment that now he is like a Sargon of Akkad era.
No, it's not necessarily that, but okay, let's say that Destiny came out, or anybody, let's make this extrapolated as possible so we don't catch fucking strays, okay? So we extrapolate we extrapolate this out so much. Say somebody goes on an anti-trans rant about something, right? And then they come out and they're like, okay, shit, I didn't fucking mean that. And then they still get flack, and then they're like, well, fuck you, I'm donating to LGB groups.
Yeah. You can see how that go up like a lead balloon.
That's essentially how they view this. Donating to the Atlanta Police Foundation, that's responsible for 90% of the funding that went into Cop City, after the cops killed a person for protesting it, claiming that they got shot by this person with no evidence of said shooting by this particular person.
Yeah. All right. The only reason why I'm conceding this is because I don't view law enforcement organizations, law enforcement training, or anything like that like as like a fascist or white supremacist superstructure in order to bring down the black man. I think that's how it was used in the past, and I think you can make an argument that there's unintended consequences from policy from 20 or 30 years ago that are still disproportionately fucking over working class people and black people. But I don't think that like cops wake up on a daily basis. Like maybe in the 60s or 70s, there were cops who woke up on a daily basis and they were like, young black men wake up every day and think about how to hurt white people. It is my job to go out and find them and hurt them. There might have been cops in the 60s and 70s who literally thought that every day that
Oh
they
yeah.
woke up. Whereas I think nowadays, what's more likely is it's like more like a classist thing, or it's like a euphemism thing, or it's like a subconscious racial bias, or some shit like that. And then we just have like the fallout from the system. At least that's my general perception of law enforcement culture. Um, so
But you were
what I
you were in a somewhat major city though, right? Like you weren't.
I was in a commuter city for a major city. It's also Florida, so it's relatively cosmopolitan. So
Yeah,
like,
like
we have
you're
Hispanics.
not in rural. You're not in a rural county where those feelings might be more prevalent. Because there's
Yeah, but like,
problems with sheriff departments still, like we
well,
know about.
but like I know, but here's the thing: it's like I know like relatively racist cops or whatever, but and like I feel not here, but I have extended family who are a little bit good old boy, and I think even they would like probably cite like there's a difference between a black person and an N word, and then they would go
Oh,
on
okay,
like a
I
they would go on
mean,
like a 20-minute rant
still
about how
racist,
like,
but
well, of course, but like, but they would still go on like this huge like moral differentiation
sure, sure,
between like the citizen who like works and pays their taxes and doesn't hurt anybody else and all that kind of shit versus the person who just wakes up every day and they just make their communities worse because they're
sure,
engaged in
sure.
like drug crime or gangs or anything. Which by the way, like that's still like racist as fuck, but it's more of like I can sympathize with that perspective infinitely more than like genetically this entire
Right,
class of
right.
people are vermin and they need to be suppressed or destroyed.
Most
Like,
of y'all
yeah.
are bad, but some of y'all are good, kind of situation.
Or most of y'all are good, but some of y'all are the
Right.
worst pieces of shit I've ever met in my entire fucking life. And if I could, basically take you out to the Everglades with some cinder blocks, I would. Yeah, so we're doing the same thing. Niz says I make the same distinctions and I'm black. Well, you're
I
in good
mean,
company.
Chris Rock literally made that joke, what, 20, 30 years ago? So I'm
Yeah.
not saying anything. I just still think it's pretty fucking racist.
Oh, well, Niz also wants to he also wants to take the South Park approach to the F slur, where instead of like it being used as a homophobic slur, you use it for Harley Davidson riders. He
I
wants to
mean,
take the N
fair.
word.
That was a good episode, so I get it.
But he wants to take the N word with the ER and apply it to in general bad people. I don't know if that's going to work, but
It's not.
I'll submit it. I'll submit it to the Black Council and see if they approve it. but shit. So okay. So we're on there, and then the reason why the LGB shit kind of hit me different because I was in the middle of conceding to you before I ranted for 2 minutes about slurs. Um, the reason why that hit me a little bit is because like I think that there are pretty chill trans people that I like a lot.
Yeah.
There's pretty chill NB people that I like a lot. But there's obviously like there's motherfuckers that drive me crazy and drive me up the wall.
Every
I
group
don't
has idiot people, dumb, insane.
right.
Yeah.
So I would never let the people who annoy the fuck out of me to cause me to donate to like an LGB organization because even though LGB like these are still people that I appreciate and support like lesbians, gays, bis or whatever. The whole point of those organizations is specifically to exclude trans people.
Yep.
And there's binary trans people that I like. Like I love Toftosh. I think she's a great person. I like Riley Grace Rochong. I think she's a fucking great person. I'm trying to think of who else, but those are my binary trans people. And then I also have Layman's they friend partner.
Hmm.
Um, they're very cool as well. So and like I don't really, I don't like fully buy into the NB thing, but I buy into it enough to like respect them as a person and think they're super
Yeah.
cool and want them to pursue their lives. And I never want to offend them or step on their toes. I want them to pursue their life's happiness to the maximum extent possible. And I don't ever want to be a detriment to that. So, anyways.
Well, I'm
Um,
glad that I could make that salient for you because that's exactly, I think, how people were viewing
yeah,
this.
I would never want a non-binary person to be like, "Oh, Connor fucking hates me now. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks." Or even a binary trans person to be like, "Oh, him being nice was just
Yep.
it was just for relative show, or he's a relatively polite person, but he actually doesn't give a fuck about
And,
me at all.
and this is
Um,
specifically why I differentiate between what Destiny donated to and what Abba donated to. I can try to find the Abba one. It's got the
Even
camera up. But
if it's ultimately a shitpost, that's cool.
yeah,
If it was kind of a donation, it's just because we view the institutions differently.
yeah,
I don't view law enforcement organizations as like the equivalent of an LGB organization, but I
sure,
could understand how ACAB people
yeah,
they would view it as worse.
yep,
They would view it as even more nefarious. So
yep.
yeah, I get it. Fair. Okay, cool.